So in today's video, I'm going to be back working on the Mini. So just a little recap. If I look here at the board, as you can see, we're on the 2012 Mini Cooper S Roadster R59. So the bonnet is being replaced, possibly the hinges, the front bumper, we're repairing that. Left wing is being replaced, left door, I'm working on that. Headlights have been replaced, left strut, inner outer tie rod drop link, that's all been taken care of. Radiator support, that's been replaced. Bonnet chrome rings, they've been replaced. Washer bottle and headlight hose, that's been repaired. I've got 4 tyres. I've also repaired the alloy wheels. The antenna's been repaired. Traction control light fault's been repaired, although I just need to sort out the wiring loom for that. The chassis rail left-hand side has been repaired. Strut tower and the inner wing, that has obviously had a couple of little welds there and been filled and repaired. So pretty much now I'm sort of at the paint stage, miscellaneous stage. So we'll continue on with that now. Let's go. The objective for today is just to get this chassis rail painted. And once I get this painted, I'll be able to get the front end back on the car. I'll be able to get the radiator support, the radiator, connect everything all back up together. Then I can get the suspension on and get the wheels back on, and then we'll take it from there. So I've gave it a couple of coats of etch primer, then some high build primer. I'm now just going to put some seam sealer on all the places where it needs to go, and then I'll give it another coat of primer, give it a final sand down with some 600 to 800, and then it'll be ready for the base coat. Apply this seam sealer all around about these areas here. So what I'm going to do here is just make a line where I want the seam sealer to be. 2 lines of tape. So I've definitely put too much on. So yeah, lesson learned. What I'll do is I'll let this dry, let it harden, and then all these little mistakes that I've made here, I'll get them sanded off in the morning. I've inadvertently put it on a little bit too thick, so yeah, lesson learned. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to get used to that spray gun. But what I've done there essentially is I've gave it a light sort of mist coat. All I'm doing there is I'm just making sure I'm not going to get any reactions or anything like that. And I'm just giving the paint a sort of tacky coat just so it sticks to the primer. And what I'll do is I'll let that flash off for about 10 minutes and then I'll start with the wet coats. But obviously with me using this new gun, it's going to be a little bit difficult to gauge, but I'll persevere and we'll see how we go. At the end of the day, this is all going to be covered up. So, I mean, it's not imperative that it's perfect, but I mean, as long as it looks decent, that's the main thing here. What I'll do now is I'll just go over it again with the air and the tack cloth, and then I'll start a wet coat. So hopefully I don't get any runs, and hopefully this goes according to plan. I've gave it another wet coat there. Obviously just trying to get everything sort of even without getting any runs, which is a little bit difficult when you're not used to the gun and what have you. And there's a lot of different angles and shapes here to this chassis rail. So I'll give it 10 to 15 minutes, let it flash off and then have a good look at it. And then if I need to do a little touch up here and there, then I'll do that. Right, it's the next morning here, guys, and as you can see, I've got a little run there. Somebody gave me a call on the phone while I was trying to do that last bit of paint there, and I lost concentration a little bit. I've also got a little bit of orange peel, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a light sand with 1000, 1200 grit, just to smooth it down a little bit, and then just give it another coat of the base coat just to get it a little bit nicer. I know nobody's going to see it, but just so it looks a bit better when the car's obviously been put over the ramp and inspected by the crash repair specialist. I need this to look as close to OEM as possible. I'm just going to have to sand this down with some 600, then 1000, and then just give it a little coat again with the base coat. So I'll probably end up having to go back into the primer there. A little bit of wet sanding. Nice light dust coats again. All I've done now is just give a couple of passes with some dust coats, light dust coats, just to give the paint a chance to adhere again. And as you can see, it's already looking a lot better. It's already looking a lot smoother, less orange peel. So I'll let that flash off, and I'll give it its final base coat. And this has turned out well. I'm really happy with that. There's going to be an inner fender guard covering all of this up, so nobody's even going to bother seeing this, but at least I know it's done nice. And as you can see, we've got a really good colour match. And now it's time to strip down the radiator support. So what I'm doing here is I'm just stripping everything down methodically and nothing that's damaged I can reuse again on the new second-hand radiator support. I'm going to give this a wash, give it a thorough clean, and also the bumper bar here. And that's me, I've gave them all a good clean now. So we'll just let them dry off and then we'll get them fitted. Right, all I need to do now is fit the radiator and all the other little bits and pieces there, which hopefully I can remember how everything goes back together. If not, I'll need to check my photos. I've took quite a lot of photos, so they should help me if I'm struggling. After studying my photos and videos of the strip down, I was confident enough to put everything back together how it was before. So if you like jigsaw puzzles, then this is a job for you. And a final paint of the subframe. And this is always the exciting part, when I remove all the plastic and protection to reveal the nice completed paint job. So it's now on to the next step, which includes fitting the speed transfer cable, and then I finally get onto the wiring loom. Now what I've had to do here is check all the cables. If there's any damage there, I've actually covered the cables with electrical insulation tape, and then doubled over the insulation tape again, and then finally went over it all with a thicker protective tape. And now on to refitting of the suspension and the other components. And I'm just making sure everything's torqued up accordingly. Now, prior to tightening up the suspension, all I'm doing is checking the negative camber to make sure it is in line with the other side. And now to install the new drop link. And onto the subframe. That's suspension components all rebuilt now. So what I'll do now is I'll get the radiator support on. I've just had a thought prior to fitting the radiator support. I've just noticed where the oil filter housing is on this car. I mean, that is unbelievable. I cannot believe that's where the oil filter housing is, way down there. So rather than giving me any hassle, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this filter out now. And then what I'll do is I'll get some fresh oil in the engine. So that's a 27mm, and that's torqued up to 25 Newton meters. So it's plastic, so we don't want to go too tight when we put that back on. And there isn't any little metal filings or anything like that in there, so at least I know the engine's okay. I'll just remove this rubber and replace it with a new one. A little bit of oil around the O-ring. As I said before, the hardest part of these jobs on the cars is trying to remember where every nut and bolt goes and how everything was pieced back together. As I said, it's just like a big jigsaw puzzle, and I really enjoy doing this kind of thing. It's really beneficial for the grey matter. And now just to connect up the two horns. So that's for the side lights and fog lights, and this is the ambient air temperature which will go into the bumper. So that's all good. So that's the turbo pressure hose, yeah. So I've got the radiator hoses here. As you can see, there's not a lot of space in these cars. Well, that seems to be everything connected up for the moment. Now, if you look down in there, I mean, pretty much if you want to do an oil change, oil filter change on this, you have to take this expansion vessel out in order to change the filter. All I'm doing here is just reconnecting the multi-plugs to the ECU or the PCM. I disconnected these while I was welding on the chassis rail, just in case. I didn't want to damage the ECU in any way with the high voltage. This is broken here, so I need to get a T-piece, sorry, a Y-piece, and get that repaired. This is always the hardest part, just as I said, trying to line everything up. What I'll do now is I'll bolt up the subframe onto the bumper bar and get everything lined up and tightened up for now. Looking back, I should have actually just put the ramp up rather than getting into my old habits of lying under the car. Now how to connect up the bonnet release mechanism. So as you can see, I've got the washer bottle fitted. I've got the pump. There's two pumps on this one. There's one for the headlights and then there's one for the windscreen. So all I need to do now is get this guard, this wheel well guard on, and then get the wheel back on, change the oil, and then I'll give the car a start. I'm just going to drain this oil now. So that's a 8mm Allen wrench. What I'm going to do now is just put the antifreeze and the oil back into the engine. Now I've put the antifreeze in the bottle, the expansion bottle there. What I'll do is I'll get the car started, I'll run it without the expansion cap on there, and I'll turn the heaters on and I'll get rid of the air that way, because there doesn't seem to be any automatic bleed points or bleed points anywhere that I can see. All I'm doing here is I'm just filling up the washer bottle tank. And hopefully it doesn't have any leaks after I've carried out the repair on it. And there you go, the proof is in the pudding. There's no water leak coming out of the washer bottle whatsoever, so that's good news. This car takes approximately 4.5 litres of oil. And now just to reconnect the battery. Okay, we'll go for the first start and see how we go. Right, here we go. That's not good. What I'll do is I'll plug the OBD reader into the car and see if there's any faults and then clear them, and then I'll give it another try. Fingers crossed it starts. And there you go, that's all it was. I just had to clear the codes. That's the car running now. Really happy about that. All I'm doing here is just chasing all the air out of the system. So I'll put the expansion cap back on. I'm letting the car heat up, let it get up to working temperature. And then what I'll also do is I'll also make sure, check underneath the car and make sure I don't have any oil leaks whatsoever. All I'm doing now is checking the temperature at the grills to make sure everything is working correctly. And then a quick check of the steering, full lock from left to right. A further check to make sure there's no oil or water leaks. Here goes, this is my first drive of the vehicle. I'm a little bit nervous, but hopefully everything's all good. I'm really looking forward to getting this car finished. It already looks as if it's going 1,000 miles an hour just sitting there. Seatbelt on, clutch in, handbrake off. Feels alright. That's just the dogs doing their job. Wait, just missed one of my chickens there. I'll go round the block again, but this time give it a little more gas. I thought the turbo would be a little bit louder, to be honest. Very quiet, very subdued. So the pipes come off the bottom of the expansion tank. So I need to have another look at this once it cools down. That's why it's not a very good idea having to take this off every time to service the vehicle, because that's obviously wearing away the rubber O-ring that holds this on. But at least it's happened here and not out in the road. That's all the antifreeze I bought just disappearing now. I don't know what's happened to this. There should be a little spring clip in there, and it's obviously came out at some point during the strip down, and I don't know where it is. I've looked everywhere, I've hunted high and low, and as you can see I've just been charged $102.48 for that part. It's got to come as a complete hose assembly. They don't actually sell the spring clip or the elbow. There's my big girl. There's my big girl. There's my big boy. And that's me now got the 4 tyres fitted. I've got this wheel, the buckle taken out of this wheel. That's all been repaired. I've got the 4 tyres fitted. So now what I need to do is get these wheels, get the damage rubbed down on the outer ring there, on the rim, and get them painted. And that'll do me now. Happy with that. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do now is just try and retap this thread here. I'll give it a little bit of lubrication.
This makes it a little bit easier to cut. Look at that. Easy peasy. There you go. That's the antenna on, looking the part. I'm going to leave this episode there because I've got to wait in parts and what have you coming in. So thanks very much for watching. Until the next episode, take care.